Woohoo! Hello there, our viewers out there. Welcome to
Hey.
another episode of Chillin with the Girls. Our subject tonight is Mind Matters, and it's a journey to mental wellness. And oh man, we are so excited to have our guest tonight.
Yes.
Woohoo! And so we are focusing tonight on Christian counseling and therapy and mental illness recovery.
hmm
It's a unique approach that integrates faith and professional mental health care. So we are excited to have Miss Cynthia Leslie with Mrs. Cynthia Leslie with us tonight as our guest.
Hello.
So Cynthia has been a Christian counselor for 6 years, with over 19 years of experience with mental health, and she has a master's degree in clinical Christian counseling, and she has helped people deal with grief, mental illness, depression, as well as marital issues. And she's also worked with the American Psychiatric Association. Woohoo! So join us in welcoming Miss Cynthia Leslie.
Yes.
Woohoo!
Glad to be here.
Yes, 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 absolutely.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself, Cynthia.
Okay. Um, well, I've been married going on 31 years.
Wow, very congratulations. That's awesome.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Have a grown son who's 25.
20.
Um, yeah,
Okay.
born and raised in the church.
That's
Um, always knew that I wanted to be used by God,
mhm.
even from a young child, I would say. Um, but it was not until I had my own mental health breakdown in, what was that, 1999? No, year 2000.
Okay.
Okay.
That I really began to be still before the Lord. Um, in fact, I was more than still before the Lord. I was broken
Mm,
before the Lord.
yeah.
Um, I had had a situation. I had a what's called a psychotic episode.
Mm,
Um, had major depression.
mm,
Uh, that was brought on because of I was in a very high pressure job working for print media. Um, wasn't really sleeping. Um, and it just all just sort of came to a head.
mm. Yeah.
And unfortunately, years prior to that, I sort of felt like something is wrong here, because I was
Okay.
down and
Mm-hmm.
depressed, and even as a child, I had experienced some depression.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was not until that breakdown that I really first met my first mental health professional.
Mm, okay.
And and unfortunately, amongst many African Americans, the first time people interface with a mental health professional is in an ER.
Mm,
That in and of itself is a sad state of
yeah.
affairs.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
it's gotten a lot better. I've seen it get better.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, because of a lot of misunderstanding, um, ignorance, and I don't say ignorance in a negative way because I know people say, "Oh, you so ignorant," and they
Right.
negative way, but I mean ignorance and not knowing,
Yeah. Lack of knowledge.
not
Yeah.
lack of
Yeah.
knowledge,
Yeah.
not understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also, our community is extremely underserved in the areas
Mm-hmm.
of mental health.
So
Um,
true.
so you who are impacted by mental health who don't know where to turn.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, at that time, the church was not a safe space.
Yeah.
It's still not in many congregations and in, you know, uh, in many organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, when I had that very, very impactful uh, sickness,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I say sickness because mental illnesses are diseases of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people believe that it's a demonic spirit. Now, what I have learned over the years is that more than likely, it's not. They
Okay.
are brain diseases. It's like we have diseases of other parts of our body, right? Now, they can be brought on by, it can be a demonic
Yeah,
episode,
like
some,
spiritual or something. Yeah.
right? Okay. Um, or it can be a combination of the two.
Mm-hmm.
I can be depressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have a disease in my brain because my chemicals are not doing what they need to be doing, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, so that part is the mental health. That's the brain disease.
Mm-hmm.
But then if I wanted to commit suicide and I had the heaviness, right? And I had the enemy telling me there's no hope for you, you'd be
Yeah.
better off dead,
Yeah.
okay, then that's the spiritual component
Yeah.
because we know that there's hope in Jesus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
so that's
Exactly.
that is an example of how it can be both.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of times when people say, "Oh, well, someone is talking crazy,"
Mm-hmm.
they think that that is a demonic episode, but those that's psychosis. That's called psychosis. Psychosis is when you hear, see, or feel things that aren't really there. Uh,
Wow.
okay, and a lot of times people have psychosis, so they're seeing, they're hearing things that aren't there, and they can be delusional. What are delusions? They're false beliefs. So that's when people think, "Oh, I'm Jesus," or "Oh, I'm Beyonce," or
Mm-hmm.
they're acting out, and everybody's like, "What's? They're crazy.
Yeah.
They're demon." No, they're having a psychotic episode.
Wow.
So just backing back a little bit to my story, it got so bad that I was not able to have a conversation. I was not able to watch TV and
Mm-hmm.
understand. I was not able to lift my head. All I could do was lay there. That's
Mm-hmm.
how bad the depression got.
Yeah.
And and I would just hold my I would just lay flat on my back and hold my arm out on the side of the bed. And my husband was like, he would go home from he would leave in the morning and I'd have my arm out. He'd
Mm-hmm.
come back 6 o'clock and
Mm-hmm.
my arm would be out. And he'd be like, "What's going on?" And I would just keep saying, if I could just touch the hem of his garment,
Wow.
I know I'd be made whole
Yeah.
right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, so it was still in me, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um, and unfortunately, if it had not been for the love of, um, people in my life
Mm-hmm.
who took the time with me, and
Yeah.
also God, of course, the Lord,
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't be here because I came very close to wanting to take my own life.
Wow.
And so,
Wow. Wow.
I'm saying all this to say, this is how my experience wanted caused me to want to not allow others to suffer in silence.
Mhm.
And I wanted to educate people because my
It's
family,
so good.
they were attacking my faith, not
Mhm.
because they don't love me, not because they were being mean to me, but they just
Mhm.
did not.
Didn't know. Didn't know.
Yeah. So they were
And
saying, you have enough faith. And that's
I
the worst
think
thing
it's
you can say to someone.
yeah, I think it's real interesting that you were saying, this was something that you went through, and then you decided that, I want to help other people or whatever. It seemed like all the time when you go through stuff, that's when you learn the songs come out, you learn about, what your gifts are, you
Yeah.
know, at your weakest, it seemed like that's when you become stronger. Those things start to come up, and you like, okay, well, I can do this. I can make a living from this. This could be my
Yeah.
profession
Yeah.
because I touched it. I have experience with it or whatever. But it's just very interesting to me, like when somebody is really down at their lowest, all of these great things come out of it. You know what I'm saying? So
And
that's
Melanie, can I
testimony.
say something about that, Melanie? The things we go through is really a testimony and a help to other people.
Yeah.
And for somebody to say
Yeah.
with ignorant means that we don't know, but we're going through something for a purpose, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how. And
Right.
that's compassion. You can feel what other people feel. And
Yeah.
whatever you go through, there's somebody else. We're never alone. We're never alone. Thank God
I
for
have
Yeah.
a question too, real quick. I'm sorry, real quickly. Cynthia, when you're talking about someone thinking that they're someone else, is that like a form of schizophrenia?
You said when someone thinks that they are when they are
Like you were saying,
think that they're,
right? You said like I'm
like
Beyonce or I'm
Beyonce.
this,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Um, it doesn't necessarily have to be schizophrenia. Actually, psychosis can be seen um, across most mental health disorders. So, people with extreme depression can experience psychosis. It's definitely very prevalent in schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. Um, but it's not just related to schizophrenia. People with major
Okay.
depression, like I said, can have psychosis. Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, because it sounds like you aren't functioning like with depression. You have some people, and I know you probably agree, they're functioning with depression.
Hmm.
Like, they like when I was depressed, I had chronic depression. It wasn't really diagnosed. Um, uh, but I know it was, and I talked to somebody and say it sounds like it, but it's like I still had to go to work. I still had to feed my child. You know what I mean? And so, being a single mom at that time, I had to function with my depression. But when I went home, like you, I went to bed. So there are people out there who are depressed and not really know what's going on with with them.
Hmm.
You agree?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. There are people who can function.
yeah.
Um, Unfortunately, mine was so
Hmm.
acute,
Yeah.
that I was not able to. But eventually,
Hmm.
of course, I did.
Yes.
But I had to take very small goals.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because so basically, I had to learn how to do really small things.
And well,
Mm-hmm.
how long did you stay in that way?
Um, Being not able to function, that probably was maybe 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then the psychiatrist that I saw, she was telling me, you have to fight back. You
Yeah.
have to fight back. Like I can give you medication, but you have to fight back.
Yeah.
And so my fighting back was my first task was to learn how to fold a load of clothes. That
Oh.
was my job,
Mm-hmm.
and that took all day,
Wow.
Now,
all
who recommended you to seek help? What did you feel like you needed to, or was it your husband, your loved one?
Oh, at that time, I had had a breakdown or a psychotic episode. So we went to the ER and
Okay,
they kept
you
me.
did say
So I spent a few days in the psych ward.
that.
Hmm.
Okay, okay. And they probably subscribed, therapy and all of that stuff for you while you were there. Were you on medication and stuff as well?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I was on medication.
okay,
Mhm.
okay.
And that helped. That helped a lot. Not at first. I mean, it took a while to find something that worked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's the thing, that I encourage people. You have to work with your doctor.
yeah.
How long did you stay on your medication that they prescribed?
Um, Years.
Oh,
Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
Well, tell
Um,
people in
um,
virtual land that medication is not a sin, because some people feel like, no, I'm not going to take no medicine. I just believe God is going to heal me or whatever. But I believe that you still got to pray and seek God, whatever. But if your doctor is subscribing a certain thing for you, I think you should do what the doctors say and also pray and seek God or whatever. So
Right. Absolutely. No, medication is not a sin. We take it for everything else. So why won't we take it for our brains
mhm.
or mental illness? It's just like that.
so I have a question.
Hmm.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh
Go ahead,
no.
Cynthia. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just basically saying, that's the stigma, and that's what we want to get rid of.
Mhm.
Because you don't tell the diabetic don't not to take their insulin. Someone who has hypertension, you wouldn't tell them not to take their medication and end up with a stroke. So
Yeah.
why would you tell someone who just happens to have a mental illness or mental health disorder not to take their medication?
Mhm. Yeah.
So my question is, what about your diet? Did your diet play a role? Excuse me, or
Excuse me.
in your recovery, or no? Did
I
they
don't
put you
think
on a
so.
certain diet, or no? Okay, okay.
I don't think so. I mean, there are different people who blog and so forth who say that sugar is not good, and so I mean, there is, there. I can't think of any particular studies about diet, but I know that there have been studies done about exercise
Mm-hmm.
being good in decreasing depression because exercise releases endorphins, which are the feel good hormones.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So there have been some studies that have shown that people who exercise do, they took two groups of people. Some they gave a placebo and had them exercise, and some they gave antidepressants. And the people who took this placebo and just exercise did just as well or better as the people who took the antidepressant.
Hmm.
So yes, exercise,
Oh,
Interesting.
that definitely. And then, oh, was someone else going to ask something? Because I could just
No,
talk.
you can go ahead.
Okay.
Hmm. That's all good. Yeah.
this is interesting. We
that's
all need to know this.
Yes.
It hits a lot of our homes. It's
It
been,
really
years ago,
it
how we
does.
kept the kids, keep in the attic and stuff like that,
yeah.
keep them hidden away. But we don't do that now that's what, it's part of
Yeah.
life, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Definitely.
And I think a lot of people in church, they are in denial. Like, oh no, I can't, I'm saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost. I can't be depressed, but they can be. It depends on, what's going on in your life. There are some triggers, like you were saying, even from a young child. If it's not addressed, I think, as a young person, then when you get older, you still might have to address this thing because it's still there. I think it's suppressed at that time. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for the people in church who say that they can't be depressed or experience some form of mental illness, they need to go to the Bible, because when you go to the Bible, the great heroes of the Bible, many of them experience some form of depression.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at King David, the man after God's own heart, and some of those Psalms, I mean, he is crying out. He's like, like, Lord, why are you out here this?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times for my clients, a lot of times I will have them to actually write a song.
Oh, wow.
When they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing about it is, sometimes we need to be true to ourselves about where we really are. A lot of times, as church people, we have been taught that we should always say, I'm good. Praise God, how are you? Oh, I'm great. I'm blessed. I'm this, I'm that. And so where is the room to really tell the truth about what you're going through?
Yeah.
The thing about me having people to write their own psalm is that if you read the Psalms, when you look at David, he always ended with an understanding and a statement about who God was and how faithful God is and how great God is, even in the midst of all of that. And so that can be very therapeutic. It'd be like, okay, I'm hurting. I got more month than money. Pookie acting crazy. Little Ray acting crazy.
Yeah.
This is going wrong. That's going wrong. My bosses. But God, you are great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But God, you are my hiding place.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
name is a strong tower. The righteous run in and they are safe.
And Patrice Johnson. Hello. Hey, Patrice.
Hi, Patrice.
Hi.
She said a lot of people are ashamed to confess that, because I guess people make them feel embarrassed and shame. I don't know how it is now in the church, but before, people were embarrassed to confess that, I'm not good. I'm depressed. I need help. And I think a lot of people suffered silently over the years. Yeah.
And you know what I
That's
get
so
too?
true.
A lot of times they would say, "Oh, don't put it in the atmosphere. You make it happen." That's a form of denial.
Yeah.
They even go around, "I'm a millionaire. Don't say I'm broke. Don't say I'm sick." That's denial.
Right.
That's not good. You got to just confess. No, I am broke.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna stay broke.
Right.
And just like you were saying, some people suffer silently. I was at a meeting, a church meeting, and this young lady came up to me, and I mean, she was like bubbly and everything, but then she told me for the past week she had been going through, like, I mean, something crazy that she had been going through, and I was like, wow, you never think that people are going through when they don't look like it.
Right.
But they are. A lot of times
Yeah.
they are. And I wouldn't have thought in a million years she was for a whole week, And I don't think anybody knew about it. I was like, that is crazy. You need to check on people, to see, how they're doing it, stuff like that for a whole week. So like you said, they suffer silently. You just never know unless they open their mouths and say it.
Sometimes it's a cover up.
Discernment kicks in.
Sometimes it's a cover up.
Mhm.
They jolly but they inside they're crying. But with discernment, you can see through some of that.
That's the best thing, right?
Or they're
That
joking
discernment,
all the time.
absolutely.
You see their eyes. Just look at their eyes. You see where they are. Look in their eyes.
Witness of your soul.
absolutely.
That's right.
People
Yeah.
are afraid of looking like they are they're not spiritual or they're not spiritual enough.
Mm.
So it's like they look at it as some type of spiritual deficit. Like
Mhm.
if I'm hurting, or if I admit that I'm really down, then somehow I'm not spiritual.
Mm.
Well, I would like to
Right.
say, not to interject, but a little bit,
Okay.
because for me personally, I've been through a whole lot of stuff too. But me personally, the reason why I may not show it around my other peers or people in church, whatever, because I feel like sometimes I have to be strong for them, for somebody else.
Mm.
So I don't want to come across, as, somebody having a whole lot of problems and issues, whatever. So, and it's not that I'm really trying to cover it up.
Right.
I'm just I try to not focus on, you know, how I'm feeling and focus on my assignment or, the other person or whatever. So, but I do admit, at times when I, need help or something like that, but I don't cover it because, I'm in denial or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but sometimes we need to be vulnerable.
Yeah,
We can't always be strong.
right.
But I think as Black women, we have been so socialized, to be that way because we've had to do it. Like we had to start with nothing, you know?
Yeah. But do you think there's a time and a place for that? I mean, not to just be walking around with your head down all the time because that's just how you feel. But do you feel like, I don't know, there's an appropriate time to show your vulnerability?
Um, yeah, in some cases, I mean, you may have to use wisdom with it, but I think the problem in our community is that there are no safe spaces. Like,
Mm,
where is the safe space? And
Yeah.
so now, you're seeing movements where the church is becoming that safe space.
mhm.
um, the American Association of Christian Counselors, they have rolled out a program, and they give scholarships. The scholarships are worth, I think, like 5,000. Is it $2,000 or something like that? It's thousands of dollars,
Mhm.
Okay.
and you become a mental health coach.
Oh wow.
These mental health coaches
In the
work
church?
in the church.
Wow.
You mean when people who are sick, who have been sick, they become coaches?
You said what?
What the money goes to the ones who's going to help people or the
Right.
people?
You want to help people, yes.
Oh,
Get a
okay.
Wow.
scholarship.
Yeah.
And
That's good.
the work is done um, online. It's like these video modules that you go through.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It teaches you all about grief,
Yeah.
different, when people are hurting, what to do, um, different symptoms of different mental illnesses.
Mhm.
So there's a whole lot in there, addiction. And
Mhm.
so what you're doing is you're being the first face. Okay. And so it's equipping people within the church to be able to deal with these issues. Now,
Mhm.
you're not the same as a mental health professional or someone who is degraded,
Mhm.
but you're able to deal with um, some of these issues, and then you know when to refer.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, right. So basically, it's
That's
teaching
not
you
for everybody though, is it, Cynthia?
interface and refer.
That's not for everybody to do though, is it? I mean, it's just certain people that I guess, have a desire to, to
Well,
be a therapist or something.
No, it's
no,
not. It's not for everybody who has a desire to be a therapist. It's for anyone who wants to reach that population.
I think it should. I think it should be a requirement for leaders to have that training. Anyway, leaders in the church and everything. I always said there should be an office for therapists in the
Yeah.
church. You got the musicians
Yeah.
office, you got the pastors and the co-pastors, the secretaries, and I don't think they understand the importance of having a therapist, on staff in the church, because sometimes the people that come in there, they are so broken. They have years and years of issues and problems and stuff like you were talking about. I know the church I went to, they had the grief care, they had divorce care, they had different programs for people, especially with divorce. That's like one of the worst trauma that people can go through, and people face
Number
that in
one.
the church,
Yeah.
and grief as well. A lot of people, they're like suffering with that,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
And
I think what we're seeing now with like the program, like what the AACC is doing,
Mhm.
it's equipping the saints to be able to deal with these people, because a lot of when you look at a lot of the ministries within the church,
Mhm.
you're dealing with these populations anyway. When you deal with
Yeah.
prison ministry, you're dealing with
Right.
people with addictions. You're dealing with mental illness. A large percentage of people who are incarcerated have mental illness. And
And yeah.
yeah,
So
so
true.
when you have substance abuse ministries,
So true. Yeah.
you're dealing with it anyway. You're
Yeah.
dealing, like you said, with the grief share.
Yeah.
So it's basically, it's not saying you have to be a therapist or you have to get your master's degree or whatever.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You just have to be able to empathize with these people.
Mhm.
You're able to say, look, I understand what you're going through. You can talk to
Mhm.
me. I
Yeah.
might not have my degree. I might not be licensed, but
Mhm.
I'm here for you. And this is, and you sit with that. I'm here to sit with you, and then I
Yeah.
can refer you to the
Yeah.
professional.
Mhm.
right. Right.
Yeah.
But
That's
if
good.
I'm talking in the church and they're not receiving any,
Right.
no one's wrapping their arms around them,
Right.
You don't
then
know
they're
what to say, because they're, like you said, lack of knowledge. They're unfamiliar with the situation and they don't know how to deal with it. Because back in the day, it was all demonic. It was like, oh, you a demon. Let's get the blessed oil and hit you upside the head with it or whatever, or do the exorcist thing, or cast out the devil or whatever. But it's something deeper, and that's what you're saying. People didn't know how to deal with those type of situation, or even communicate with them, like you said, and give them the resources that they need. So
One
I
one
agree
of the
with
one
what
of
you
the
said.
things that I found out, when the people come with the agape love of God, and they can tell a difference. Just a hug. You know what I'm saying? Just
Mhm.
listen. It's not, you don't be talking sometimes. Just listen to them.
I was going to say just listen to the
Listen.
story.
Hold their hand. And when they feel that, they will gravitate to healness, to wholeness.
Yeah.
yeah.
Just hold them. Just hug.
And don't let it only be in the church. Like, if you know someone is suffering from that, be that person that will go the extra mile to pick up their phone or go see
Mhm.
that person, really, take them under your wings and just help them through it. Because a lot of times we people have to be walked through stuff,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
and it's a step by step thing. And everybody don't want to put themselves out to do that. I rather, for, like, I'm not saying me myself, I'm just going to preach it over the pulpit and you just grab what you need and take it home and get this scripture and read it. But it's like, it's a matter of, I think now we just need people to walk them through it, tell them how to get through it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, back in the day now, they did that. When we had, people come with the addiction, they actually stayed.
Yeah.
You know, we had house churches. with the
Mhm.
rooms upstairs, and they would stay for free.
Yeah.
Because, they did. Oh, y'all weren't even born then, but they did that. They did that, and the people, and they would come into. They became families. We used to be families. Now we strangers now. Sometimes we don't know what's going on.
That's
They
true.
kept each other's children. Do you need shoes? They see you don't have socks. It was family, and I think we're getting back to that. We have to because
We
so
do.
much is going on. It's safety. It's safety. So you
Yes.
don't have to talk to me against church.
Yeah.
It's what people are doing in the church. It's not God. It's just beautiful. So I thank you for being here with us. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Cynthia, how do you help your clients manage depression and anxiety from a faith-based perspective?
Okay. Well, a lot of times, okay, because I am what's called a temperament therapist. With the temperament, we look at your God-given traits.
Okay.
Hmm.
So I give people what's called a temperament analysis, and
Mm-hmm.
that gives me about 30 traits about the person. And so, a lot of times with that, you will be able to see like where some of the breakdowns are within people.
Okay.
Um, for example, people with what's called the phlegmatic temperament, they're marked by low energy. So sometimes I will see people who will come to me and say, "Oh, I'm depressed." And phlegmatics, they will keep the peace at all costs. So these are people who are not very good at speaking up for themselves.
Okay.
Oh,
And so, and they'll be like, I feel like I'm depressed, and so once I explain to them about their temperament, how they're marked by low energy,
Mm-hmm.
how they need to have a better um, regimen of rest, relaxation, diet, and exercise, um, and how they need to start speaking up for themselves, and you know sometimes those people will start to do better. And then also using the scripture, using the word.
Right.
Um, that's one way that I help people with anxieties. Uh, we also use scripture. Uh, of course, Philippians 4. Um, deep breathing is sometimes uh, put into use. Sometimes people meditate on the word of God. Um, sometimes people will need to do things that they find to be soothing, like music.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there are a lot of good YouTube uh, things on YouTube that deal with like anxiety or nighttime relaxation, and you can actually they have 8 hours of scripture, and
Yeah.
people can actually sleep with that.
Yep.
So
oh
that's
yeah.
one of the things. And so a lot of times it's really, just talking to the person and
Mm-hmm.
hearing what they're going through, empathizing with them. Um, yeah.
And you really, I'm like, now I'm interested in the temperaments. You said one is phlegmatic. Can you name a couple other ones? Because I'm like, oh wow, it sounds really good.
Okay. Sanguine. That's the red temperament. So that's the person who's outgoing.
Okay.
And what's the name of that?
Sanguine.
Oh,
Okay. Um, again, I find people who think, hey, I'm depressed,
Mm-hmm.
and if I it sanguine, and it comes down to that person is a sanguine, so they need a lot of socialization. And
Mm,
that person might be in the house all the time. They're not getting out. They're not doing things.
okay.
And so once they start to get out and socialize more, they're
Mm-hmm.
feeling better. So sanguine is one. Melancholy, that's considered the black temperament.
Okay.
Those people are normally they really need to take time out at the end of the day to sort of rest and rejuvenate. They need time by themselves. They can't just walk in the house and start interacting with their family. They need that half an hour, you know. And a lot of times, people with the melancholy temperament can be perfectionists. And
Mm,
they not only expect perfection from themselves, but from others. And so, with them putting that expectation on others, then you find that there a lot of their relationships are not doing well, you
mm,
know. And so, by having an understanding of that, then they are able to change, you know. And also, like with the person, when I said the red temperament, the sanguine,
mhm.
you're also teaching that person to interact with the Lord more,
Okay.
you know, because a lot of times, if you're sanguine, because a lot of churches are giving these temperament tests now, but they only give you your
Wow.
they give you one temperament. We do temperament blends in 3 different areas, so it's like a whole
Oh,
like a
yeah.
whole
Oh,
thing. So, for example, a person who's sanguine in the affection area, they need a great deal of love and affection
Hmm.
for their deep personal relationships. So that's like their husband or wife
Okay.
or significant other.
Hmm.
Um, we teach that person, you also need to go to God, you know? And if when you spend more time with the Lord, because you know how we sing in the black church, can't nobody do me like Jesus, right?
Right. Right.
Time with the Lord, that's going to lessen the amount of affection that you need from your significant other. So you're not putting so much pressure on that person.
Yeah.
So that's taking some strain off of that relationship.
Hmm.
So you can see how it impacts relationships. And a lot of times I will have people to say, because people get to validate their analysis.
Hmm.
These 30 traits, they're validating it. And so I'm saying, okay, pick 2 from this one section.
Hmm.
Pick the 2 that are impacting your relationships the most or are not giving you the results that you want out of your life. And then they'll pick them and then they'll say, okay, tell me about it.
Hmm.
And a lot of times through talking through it, all things start to come up.
Mm.
People realize they're perfectionists because, say, for example, someone says, okay, I'm a perfectionist. And I'm like, tell me about it. Then they tell me, oh, dad wasn't around, you know, when
Wow.
I was a kid. He didn't give me that love or whatever. So, it leads to other things. Because sometimes people will say, well, how long do I need to be in therapy? How long will I be? I said, I can't tell you that. Because there are people who came and said, oh, I'm just stressed on my job. And then, it's like you can go layers. And once you start to go beneath those layers, you may find out that there's some severe trauma with that person,
Yeah.
So.
That's some good stuff.
it is.
So
Yeah.
how do you
Can we?
know? Oh, go ahead, Swan. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Mel. You're fine.
No, because I was just thinking, how do you know? I mean, how long does it take for you to, I guess, do the analysis and also come up with? You said it was like 30 different characters or something like that. Um, does it take like a couple of sessions, a sit-in, or what? How long does that usually take?
Okay, that takes, um, I send them, I email them the questionnaire, and that's only 18 statements that they respond to.
Okay.
And then we have a system through National Christian Counselors Association that generates their temperament analysis
Oh,
based
okay.
on their statements.
Okay.
So you
Oh,
get it in 30 minutes. Hmm.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
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 Hmm.
wow.
I wanted to ask about peer recovery. What is peer recovery?
Okay, peer recovery is a person like myself who has lived experience with mental illness, being a mentor to someone who has mental illness. Now, recovery is the stage in which the illness is not the prevailing theme in your life. It's it is the stage in which you are able to reach a place of um I want to say a certain level of complacency in your life. You feel good about who you are and what you're doing. Now, recovery looks different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, and one of the quotes on my website is that I came up with is recovery is not the absence of illness, but it's the audacity to work toward a better life in spite of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that I no longer live with a mental health disorder. It means that I am now living my best life in spite of that.
Mm-hmm.
And my best life may look different from someone else's best life.
Okay.
So, for recovery for me was being able to have diminished symptoms, being able to take care of my child, raise him,
Mm-hmm.
a good wife to my husband, and being able to work. Now, unfortunately, I wanted to work full time. That's still not possible for me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm able to do something that's very meaningful, that I love to do, and I'm able to support myself.
That's good.
So recovery for someone else might be, it might not even be about working. It might be about having good relationships with family.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they have a gift that they can use in a certain way,
Right.
you know? So it's not always about working. It just looks different for everyone. But it's taking you beyond that stage because that first stage when you're diagnosed, that is so traumatic. And I don't think people realize that. It's
Mm-hmm.
like when I was diagnosed, it was like I felt like my life, I had lost my life.
Wow.
Yeah. So you're afraid, you don't understand. You got people who love you dearly, saying you don't have no faith, you don't have this, you don't have that. And
Mm-hmm.
it was hard. It was tough,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so yeah, I am so glad that I am able to use my story and let people see,
Mm-hmm.
where I am and how God has blessed me. I don't take the credit for it. I give him all the glory, you know. But I'm glad that I have been trained to help them because it's not only having a conversation. There are steps to recovery, you know. So yeah,
So you were diagnosed with what, ma'am? With mental illness?
yeah. I don't really share my specific
Oh, yeah,
diagnosis.
diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yes. Hmm.
So, a question. So, is mental illness hereditary, or it's like the environment you're around, or what?
Um, it can be both. A lot of times, heredity does play a major factor. Um, and it's not like because you have, like, because your mother has mental illness doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily have that same mental illness, but it's
Mm-hmm.
what's called being predisposed. So that means you have a higher risk of it,
Okay.
you know. And a lot of times you see these things that go kind of like generation to generation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. But then again, it can be environment. You know, if you're on a job and you're very stressed out or anxiety, you know, because actually anxiety is the most prevalent mental health disorder or mental illness in this country. Anxiety
Wow.
disorder.
Yeah.
Wow.
So sometimes, you know, it can be environmental, but a lot of times you do see it in families.
Yeah, I was somewhere and someone told me that they deal with anxiety, and it was almost like um it came on because of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
because they were diagnosed with COVID, and then they got over COVID, but then they were left with that anxiety. How do people deal with that? How do you deal with that anxiety?
Oh, okay. So they were diagnosed with COVID and now they're anxious about getting COVID again, or
I'm not
just
sure whether it's just an anxiety that just comes over them at times, Yeah, and I don't think it's an anxiety about them getting COVID. It's
uh,
just that stuff happens to them, and they just, anxiety overtakes them.
It's like an anxiety attack. I hear him
Attack,
saying.
an anxiety attack.
Wow.
Yes. So how do they deal with that?
okay. A lot of times there you can do deep breathing, um, breathing in through the nose 5 and breathing out through the mouth 5. A lot of times you can like focus on something. Like if you focus on something, then say for example, I'm trying to say like visualization.
Hmm.
So say you like the ocean, and so you sort of focus on hearing the waves
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
you just allow yourself to be in that moment. Also,
Okay.
people can chew on the word. Um, you can look at heroes of the faith. Um, some people need medication. You know, if it's to a point um, where it is affecting your functioning.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
I know, because she's extremely busy, but she was telling me when the anxiety comes on, she goes and grabs her phone and plays some game on her phone, and it calms her down, you
Mm,
know. But I was telling her I was dealing with anxiety as well during the time of COVID,
mm-hmm.
and I would have to literally get up from where I was sitting or whatever and move to another area in my home,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and just take my mind off of whatever. I mean, little bitty things would just cause me to have anxiety. I feel like it's just dumb stuff would just cause me to have anxiety. Like, oh my God, I'll have to calm myself down. I'll have to get up from my space and go to another space, and just calm myself down and just talk myself out of it.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
how
had
I do
felt
it.
like that to Wanda. I felt like that maybe twice when I was inundated with so much.
Okay.
When there were people come at me from all angles, do
Yeah.
this and research this and write this, and I said, oh, it's like you get so stuck you can't do anything. You
Okay.
just
Yeah.
don't do anything. That's a bad feeling.
Yeah, it is.
You
It's a
gotta
bad
stop
feeling.
saying no.
I know what you're saying, Pastor Farmer. It's like almost being like a deer caught in the headlights, you know? Yeah. And so definitely what you were saying, Tawanda, in terms of like focusing on something else, a lot of times that can help. Um, yeah.
It was so, when I was saying it was dumb, to me it was dumb. It was so small that if I was about to say something and I totally forgot what I was about to say, that would cause me to have anxiety.
To
And I was
panic?
like,
That's
Wow.
the
yes,
devil.
I,
Yeah. Don't mind.
Well,
Don't
I
mind
don't go
knowing
through
it.
that anymore, but it was during the COVID times when COVID was really strong. And I would just, and I don't know why, but I don't go through it anymore, thank God. But
Mm.
little stuff would just make me happy.
Sometimes you get a phobia too, right? I
Like
gotta get my mask.
Wanda has, but I want to. We have a couple more minutes, and I know people lost loved ones, and I just want to address this really quickly. I know I don't want to go through it quickly, but how do people deal with grief? What would make? How do you walk them through it? What do you do? How do you counsel someone who's grief stricken?
Okay. A lot of listening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of validating their feelings.
Okay.
Um, also, you know, um, letting them know that it's okay to hurt. It's okay to grieve.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times people take the scripture out of context where it says we do not grieve as those who have no hope, but it doesn't say we don't grieve.
Yeah, great. Right.
It
Yeah.
says we don't grieve as those who have no hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, also, a lot of times people need to make meaning. So whatever making meaning means
Yeah.
that person.
Mm-hmm.
Like one client, I had her to do like a collage of pictures.
Okay.
Some people like to do a balloon release, but that's illegal now in the state of Maryland. You can't release balloons.
Really? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like all the
Little birds or
Oh, because
something.
they choke the fish or something like
Birds and all
that.
that. Yeah.
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 But allowing that person to make meaning,
Yeah.
it's basically just a lot of it is just walking beside them
Mm-hmm.
and walking with them through that journey. Because a lot of times people want to rush people.
Yeah.
They
I
want
was just going to ask you how long would you say would be a healthy grieving process?
I don't think you can really put a time period on that.
Okay.
I think most people are probably more familiar with the Kubler-Ross, and that's the grief theory where you have bargaining and acceptance and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the science has kind of moved away from that now, and it's more about just allowing people to express.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see that there's a problem, like with, for example, complicated grief, that's when a person cannot move on. They're not moving forward. There's no hope
Okay.
of moving forward. It's been 3 years and they're still in the same place,
Yeah.
So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times I will have people journal too and date it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, say they're with me 3 months, they can go back to the first journal entry and see how
Gotcha.
much
Gotcha.
progress they've made,
Yeah.
That's very
and
good.
so that's helpful as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
if they're grieving after like 10 years or 20 years, is that a problem? Should they see somebody at that point?
um, I think it's how they're grieving.
That's what I was saying because I think, and you're the counselor. So, do we have the healthy grief and then unhealthy way to grieve? Right? Do you agree with that or no?
Yes and no, but
Mm-hmm.
not trying to be difficult, but
No,
really
that's okay.
yes.
We're going over because this is important. I think someone
Yeah.
really. Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that person is because grief can last a lifetime. Grief can be
Wow.
seen over a lifetime, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And grief is not linear. It's up.
Mm-hmm.
It can be up and down. And
Yes,
if you've
I
lost
agree with
someone
that.
close to you, you might hear, you might be doing,
Oh yeah.
and you hear a certain song, and you're just like bawling,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it can sneak up on you, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But at some point, that person should be able to, like someone who has lost their spouse, at some point they should be able to see a life for themselves. They should be able to move forward in some way, shape, or form. Now, you don't want people to be moving forward fast, like selling the house. Like, you shouldn't
Right.
make any major
Mhm.
life
Mhm.
decisions for
Right.
6 months. Okay. So, if the person is not moving forward, that's a problem. That's what we call like stunted grief,
Okay.
you
What
know?
kind?
Stunted.
Yeah. Or complicated grief.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
There should be some regaining of hope. There should be some degree of normalcy. If there's no degree of normalcy, say you lost your spouse a year ago and that you haven't returned to any type of normalcy in your life, you're still not at work.
I can.
You're not really going to church. You're only going online because you can't stand to walk into,
Yeah.
the
No.
sanctuary
Yeah.
without him, you know.
Yeah.
um, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now how
You're
was
still
this?
setting his plate on the table, and it's been a year. That's when
Need
we
help.
are concerned.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are people who aren't crying and who aren't expressing, and those are the ones I worry about too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Wow.
okay.
It's the ones who aren't crying that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I tell my clients, because they're like, "Well, I cry and I'm crying." Okay, yeah, you're crying, but you lost your loved one.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's the ones that aren't crying. So a lot of times that can be a problem when people are not able to express. There's no outlet for it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. How about, but sometimes these little things, some people, like a birthday, like a time of year, like a Father's
Yeah.
Day, a Mother's Day, something like that. And they crash, I mean, there's sometimes they just crash. And
Yeah.
unexpectedly on the job or different places, they have like a breakdown
Yeah.
unexpectedly.
I
Was
think
that a
that's
problem?
normal though. I think that's normal.
That's
Yeah.
normal. Okay.
I mean, like
That's
it goes on you for
holidays.
like 10 years, 12
For
years.
anniversaries, I think
Yeah.
so because
Yeah.
Yes, I
Please.
think it's
Yeah.
normal.
familiar events and stuff like that. Like you hear a song or something like
Yeah.
that. They don't just stay there. Like you
Right.
might have that moment on that day, but then the next day, then they may be fine. Then they're, they're moving around. But I think that's normal. Like she said, it can last a lifetime. We
Right.
love you,
Right.
Cynthia. We need you to stay longer. And I know
And
we have.
come back.
Oh my God. we have to
You know
get-
what?
Yeah.
When I was talking to her on the phone, I said, I just know this is gonna be a part two
Oh my
because I
goodness.
just know it's
I
gonna be
see.
so much.
It has to be.
Yeah,
Thank
because
you so
we didn't
much.
even touch the surface really.
Right.
Oh man, of all the wealth that's
We have our
inside of her.
questions. I know it was other things going. I got stuck on
Right.
the temperaments. I'm like, oh, this is so good.
That's fine. I like
Yes,
the compliment. You
absolutely.
see
We're
my
gonna
page,
have
I
you
start
back.
taking notes.
No,
Yeah.
definitely
Same here.
back on.
Thank
Patrice
you
Johnson,
guys for having me.
and she said this was really good.
Patrice.
Yes,
Yeah. So thank you. I'd have some couple
absolutely.
people on here. It was Andrea Simmons, Natalie Bailey. She gave it thumbs up. Sherry Wilson and other people aren't on here, but if they don't give it thumbs up or heart, I don't know who's viewing. But I really appreciate you coming
Yes.
on. Oh my God, this was just amazing. We
And
just
can I throw one thing out?
sure.
Sure.
Okay, AACC, they just rolled out a mental health coaching program where they're giving scholarships. And this one is for youth mental health.
Oh, okay.
So now they're equipping the church to deal with the young people.
We got to get you back. Got to get you. That's a good one.
Yes.
So y'all go out here and get all this free education.
Right.
Yes.
And be ready to serve these people who are coming into your.
That's right. They're coming.
Yes.
They're already started. They're
That's
coming.
right. We
They're
need it.
coming.
We absolutely need it.
So
And
much.
you know, it's the 911 with our young people.
It is.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank y'all. Thank you for coming on. Thank everyone for tuning in to Chillin with the Girls. Come back next week. I think we have cooking. Our cooking show, I believe, is next week. So you don't want to miss it. Right. Bye. Have a great weekend. We will see y'all next week. Love you guys.
Have a
Don't
great night.
forget to share this with your loved ones. Like and subscribe to our channel. Love you.
Yes.
Yes.
Love you.
Bye.